Hello and welcome to day 3 of the Play Sheet Podcast's team breakdowns for the 2021 NFL Draft. After looking at a couple of teams quite late in the order yesterday, we're moving back up to the business end of proceedings today. So first up are the Carolina Panthers. Now the Panthers currently hold 7 picks going into this year's draft, including the 8th overall. They also hold the 39th pick in the second round, the 73rd pick in the third round, 4th, 5th and 6th round picks, as well as a compensatory 6th round selection. The additional 6th round pick is for the loss of 7 free agents at the end of the 2019 season. It's a long list of players, but it included Gerald McCoy, Mario Addison and James Bradbury. They were in fact awarded 2 6th round compensatory picks, but one was sent to the Jets as part of the Darnold trade, which we'll get onto in just a bit. Their 7th round pick, as we mentioned yesterday, went to the Bills, and that's from a trade all the way back in 2018, bringing Marshall Newhouse to the team. Now, the Panthers were largely underwhelming in 2020, finishing 3rd in the NFC South with a 5-11 record. 8 of those losses were by less than 1 score, with quarterback Teddy Bridgewater consistently shown an inability to come up clutch when it mattered most. Now, though the blame for the underwhelming season cannot be laid solely at the door of Teddy Bridgewater, the O-line was banged up, passes were dropped, play calling was questionable at times, one season was enough to end hopes that he would be the long-term starter under centre. Earlier in the offseason, there was speculation that the Panthers might aim to move up a couple of places in the order in order to secure a quarterback. However, that no longer made sense after the 49ers traded into the third slot overall, and that led the Panthers to trade with the Jets for Sam Darnold. Now, the Panthers sent that 6th round compensatory pick, as we mentioned earlier, but that was it for this year. They will owe a 2nd and a 4th round pick to the Jets next year. So with quarterback probably addressed, what are the needs of the Panthers going into this draft? As it stands, there are big obvious holes on the roster. Now, the Panthers run a 4-3 base defense, and as it stands, there are only 3 defensive tackles on the depth chart, with Derek Brown probably being the only starting caliber player amongst them. The linebacker unit is an area of weakness, and the Panthers have particular need for an off-the-ball type linebacker. Now, they did pick up Haason Reddick in the offseason, but Reddick is more of a pure edge rusher, and he may even line up on the D-line rather than with the linebackers. Defensive backs are another area of concern. After the departure of James Bradbury at the end of 2019, they haven't really found a lockdown cornerback, and current starters AJ Bouye and Dane Jackson both have durability concerns, having missed multiple games in the last couple of seasons. And finally, it probably wouldn't harm to look at upgrading slot corner or free safety. I think it's both concerning and crazy that the Panthers will be looking at all 3 levels of the defence going into this year's draft, despite spending every single one of their 2020 picks on that side of the ball. Now, things don't get much better looking at the offense either. The Panthers were one of the worst red zone teams in the NFL, ranking 28th and converting a smidgen over half of their chances. A dominant red zone target, be that a wide receiver or a tight end, should be on their wish list. They should probably also be looking at a backup for Christian McCaffrey. Mike Davis was lost to free agency. And then the left side of the offensive line is also problematic, with Cameron Irving not being the long-term solution there. So it certainly feels that the Panthers have too many issues to address in one draft alone. And unfortunately for them, they only have 11 million in cap space, so free agency won't be able to carry too much brunt either. Before we get into the analysis, it's probably worth mentioning that both General Manager Scott Fitterer and Head Coach Matt Rule have both said that it's part of their strategy to accumulate as many draft picks as possible, so we should probably expect to see the Panthers trade back where they can. So what do the Panthers do at 8th overall? Now, a lot of mock drafts have the Panthers taking Micah Parsons, but I'm not too convinced. Parsons is a between-the-tackles explosive player who suits a blitz-heavy team. The Panthers blitzed on less than a quarter of their defensive snaps last year, ranking 24th in the league. In the unlikely event that Pitts is available, it would be hard to pass up on him. However, all things considered, my view is that if they do select with the 8th overall pick, it will be a cornerback. At 8th, they will have the choice between Horn and Surtain, and both should provide an instant upgrade to their secondary. Now, in the unlikely event that Justin Fields is still on the board at 8th, it would almost be impossible for the Panthers to pass over. Sam Darnold was acquired relatively cheaply and isn't a significant cap liability, given I think he's still on his rookie contract. The Panthers certainly aren't overcommitted to him going forward. Now, if the Panthers trade back in the first round, the position they target will be dependent on how many slots they move back. It looks like there will be a lot of offensive tackles and cornerbacks going off the board in the early teens, or edge rushers should be moving around about the 20th pick. Given the wide-ranging needs of the Panthers, you can make a case for any of these players. Now, moving into the middle rounds, I would expect the Panthers to move their focus to interior defensive linemen, and given their bare depth chart, they may well take a couple, especially if they gain additional picks through trading back. As mentioned earlier, the Panthers will surely need to take a running back at some point to back up CMC, though given that's a depth player, I wouldn't see that happening until late on the third day. That's the Panthers.